Apparently, being the strongest mage in the room isn't enough when your boss is the royal clown. This is the story of Alec, an overpowered mage who just wants to fix the system, but gets kicked from his party on the first day of his job. The story begins as a young boy named Alec is approached by a mysterious man named Eldus, who offers to teach him magic. Although confused at first, Alec accepts Eldus's offer and begins training under him. After hours of training, Alec learns to conjure fire magic, which surprises Eldus as it normally takes a person a month to learn basic fire spells. Alec insists on learning another spell, but Eldus doesn't want to rush it, so he ends their training session for the day. To relax their minds, both the master and the disciple do some fishing in the nearby river, but the relaxation method backfires as Alec keeps getting frustrated at Eldus for not teaching him more spells. Even though they have more than enough time left for the day, Eldus understands how the kid is feeling, but he is not going to change his mind regardless. Alec suddenly has a question in his mind. Why does this strange man want to train him? As he asks Eldus why, Eldus grows serious, but instead of replying, changes the topic, saying he's got a fish on the hook. Weirdly, Eldus doesn't know how to catch a fish, so Alec helps him, pulling the rod together and catching the fish successfully. The next day, Eldus brings young Alec a book of spells to read, but it's sadly too complicated for this puny-brained kid. Still, after hours of relentless studying and analyzing patterns, with Eldus's help, Alec learns how to conjure ice magic as well. Months pass in the blink of an eye as this young disciple becomes almost as good as his master in ice spells. Soon, winter comes to an end, and one day in the scorching summer, Eldus gives Alec the bad news that he won't be teaching him any longer. Alec doesn't want to part ways with his master, so he demands to know why he won't teach him. Eldus explains with a heavy expression that he needs to leave the capital and gives Alec a final lesson, telling him to never make the mistake of becoming a court magician. Alec has no clue what Eldus is trying to say. Why did he teach him magic for these past couple of months if he didn't want him to become a court mage? So, Alec asks him once again why he went out of his way to teach him magic. Eldus, in reply, reveals that he actually owed Alec's late mother a favor and then walks away, leaving Alec completely speechless. Years later, Alec is now a student of the Royal Magic Academy. Over the past couple of years, he has been trying to get information about his mysterious mentor, and now he's finally found a book containing Eldus's records as a student of this academy. According to the book, Eldus graduated top of his class from this academy and became a court magician, but then, out of nowhere, he was banished, which explains why he had to leave the capital. Alec doesn't know why his mentor was banished, but the only thing he knows is that his mentor is a good man, so he makes an oath to bring change to the system of the court, and to do that, he must become a court magician. Fast forward into the future, Alec does become a court mage and joins the party of the crown prince, Regulus. But then, out of the blue, he gets kicked from the party. Alec demands an explanation, asking Prince Regulus why he is firing him, and Regulus explains that he finds Alec useless. In his eyes, all Alec does is cast support spells and doesn't have any real contributive powers at all. Regulus's party's mage also joins in on the insult, mentioning how much of a coward Alec is, never wanting to take risks and always discouraging the group from exploring the dungeon's deeper floors. Apparently, Regulus only allowed Alec to join on His Majesty's orders, but Regulus no longer wishes to have deadweight in his party, nor do the other two members, Lenny and Eeks. Alec is left speechless. He doesn't know what to say, so he silently watches as Regulus berates him, calls him a low peasant, and delivers the final blow by saying that a loser like him doesn't deserve to wear a court mage's robe. It's revealed to us that the only reason Alec used support spells during their dungeon runs is because he determined, after thorough analysis in his studies, that Regulus's team didn't have enough magic power to survive in the deeper floors. Alec knows that Regulus will venture to the 13th floor the next day, and if he does so without a support mage in his team, he will surely get overpowered by the monsters. So, Alec selflessly heads to the castle to warn Regulus, but there he gets stopped by the guards, who give him the shocking news that his status as a court mage has been stripped off. Lenny comes there and laughs at Alec in a mocking demeanor. She insults him, repeatedly mentioning that he is now just a peasant with his status as a court mage removed. She also mentions the reason why the king chose Alec to be in Regulus's team. Apparently, Alec has a record for clearing the capital's dungeon's 68th floor all by himself, while no one else has made it past floor 37. Lenny believes that Alec's record is nothing but a lie, so she tells the supposed lying fox to go back to the village where he came from. Alec still acts selflessly and pleads to Lenny one last time to deliver his letter to the king, promising her that the letter is to help the prince. Lenny, however, tears the letter apart before ordering the guards to kick him out. Alec hopelessly walks back to the city, feeling sad that he wasn't able to change the system of the court. He aimlessly stares in one direction when suddenly a girl hugs him. She's Yorha, Alec's old friend and classmate. It's been 4 years since they graduated, and this is their first time seeing each other since. They both sit near the river and share their tough experiences throughout these years. Hearing that Alec's been kicked from his party, Yorha mentions how she wanted him to join her adventuring party 4 years ago, but Alec refused back then, wanting to become a court mage instead. Fortunately for him, her offer is still on the table, and he gladly accepts it. They shake hands, sealing the deal, and Yorha excitedly welcomes Alec to her A-ranked party, the lasting period. Later, Alec, in his dream, relives the memory of his mentor Eldus, telling him to never become a court mage. He wakes up in the carriage with Yorha, and they are on their way to the city of Fizel in a nearby country together. Yorha notices something's wrong and asks Alec if he had a nightmare or something. Alec, in reply, says he should have listened to his mentor's words, but Yorha doesn't understand what he means because she didn't see the flashback like us viewers. Alec doesn't bother to explain it to her either and continues their journey quietly. A few days later, Prince Regulus learns from Lenny about Alec becoming an adventurer and leaving the country. He finds it hilarious and is glad that he won't need to be under the same roof with a commoner anymore. He has recruited Vorgan, the son of Duke Forneus, an actual noble born, to be the replacement for Alec, and he is sure that with Vorgan, he'll progress much faster in the dungeon. Once he conquers the dungeon below the capital, his name will be known throughout the world. He cannot wait for that to happen and laughs like a stereotypical brainless brat. Meanwhile, Alec and Yorha arrive at the dungeon city of Fizel. Seeing hundreds of adventurers everywhere makes it clear to Alec why it's called a dungeon city. As they walk around the city, Yorha excitedly tells Alec that her team is currently working on clearing the dungeon in the western ruins. She wants Alec to join them, but before doing so, Alec must register himself as an adventurer. They head to the Adventurers Guild to do so, but the receptionist Misha doesn't allow it, asking Alec to come again with a pass. Apparently, the pass is a license an adventurer needs to go beyond the 13th floor of a dungeon and is only available to adventurers who've been part of a guild for at least 2 years. Yorha already knows about such rules, but she thought that her party mate Krazia had already talked with the guild and made an exception for Alec. Well, according to Misha, Krazia did come to the guild, but instead of pleading to Misha, she threatened her, and that's why Misha refused to help her. Getting no solution, the two go outside for a break, and while eating sandwiches together, Yorha tells Alec that she and Krazia have already cleared the 51st floor of the dungeon, but can't clear the 52nd floor without Alec's help. In any case, sulking around isn't going to help them, so Yorha decides to explore the upper floors with Alec for the time being. The two of them together challenge a swarm of bee-like monsters, and there Alec unleashes his full power, as he's no longer restricted by the status of a court mage. He single-handedly wipes out an entire civilization of the bee monsters with an overpowered thunderbolt spell. However, the battle isn't over yet, as out of nowhere, a gigantic mad worm emerges out of the ground and grabs Yorha with its mouth. Back in the academy, Alec was known as the strongest offensive magic user, while Yorha was known as the strongest support magic user, so the duo together is, of course, unstoppable. With trust in each other, Alec summons a blazing serpent and hurls hurls it at the worm. The only reason he isn't worrying about Yorha is because he is confident in her support magic powers. Expectedly, Yorha conjures a shield to protect herself and remain safe while the worm is scorched to death. They celebrate their victory and recall their academy days when they were in a party. There was a blonde guy and a silver-haired girl in their team as well, but Alec clearly outshined them all and eliminated the enemies with ease. Together, the 4 teenagers cleared the 68th floor and set a new record. These 4 youngsters were the original members of the party Alec has joined once again, the lasting period. It turned out that day was their valedictory service, and their colleagues were in school. They had started the celebration and were taking pictures. To their shock, Alec and his friends hadn't returned. At first, they decided to wait for them, but when they didn't come in time, their absence became concerning. Rumors started to spread among the students that something evil must have happened to them. The kids talked about how risky it was for them to go that deep into the dungeon, and the possibility that the Hydra boss had defeated and killed them. Their teacher, Rosie, was also deeply concerned for the kids, but there wasn't much she could do. At that point, Alec and his friends appeared from afar and joined their colleagues. They won their awards, from Ornest winning 4th in the class to Krasha taking 3rd position, Yorha being named the Salutatorian of the Year, and Alec being awarded Valedictorian of the Year. As Alec received his award, he teased Rosie by calling out her name repeatedly until she got angry, and when she realized she couldn't see through them, she let them be. The kids later walked through the forest, thinking about their next steps in life. They had decided to form a party together and become adventurers, but Alec stopped and announced that he wanted to become a court magician. They stopped and asked why. He admitted that his father wasn't in support of it and that he had to convince him. They thought about his condition and how much he needed money. They considered that court magicians were well paid and would get established faster, so they agreed to let him go. He admitted they were right. His father had spent so much time training him, and the least he could do was work hard. Despite accepting that he should go, they insisted that when they made a name for themselves, no matter how long it took, they would come to find him so he could join their party. Although it wasn't a formally agreed proposition, they all stretched out their hands to seal their friendship by fate. 4 years later, fate eventually smiled on them. Yorha was so excited as she told Alec to drink and eat as much as he wanted since it was his welcome party. Yorha looked so excited to see him with them, and she couldn't contain her excitement. He teased her about how happy she was, but she immediately denied it, reminding him how he had used his fire on her earlier when he was fighting the giant worm, and how he hadn't cared if she became a grilled chicken because of it. She was drunk, so her humor got the best of her, and she collapsed on the chair. She was known for not being the best at holding her booze, so Alec wasn't shocked. Out of concern, he used his magic to throw his coat over her so she could be covered. As he did that, a random man appeared behind him and complimented his gentlemanly spirit. Alec didn't seem convinced, so he didn't respond. The man further commented on how Yorha's attitude didn't speak well of adventurers in Fizel, which annoyed Alec, so he ignored him. Angered that Alec didn't acknowledge his presence, the man attempted to attack him, but Alec blocked the hit with his shield, and the wine spilled. This strange man admitted that Alec was as good as he had been predicted to be. He showed Alec a pass. Yes, the exact pass Alec needed to join his friends at a higher level in the dungeon. The man offered to give Alec the pass if he showed him his magic. At this point, Alec wondered who this man was to make such an offer. Suddenly, Yorha woke up and recognized the stranger as Leviel, the guild master of the Fizzle Guild. Leviel no longer needed an introduction. He asked Alec if he wanted the offer and took them to the guild's underground field to see Alec's magic. Before the fight, or rather the competition, began, he informed Alec that he wanted to see him in his full form before admitting him. Alec, wanting to satisfy his friends and meet them at their level, decided to engage in the fight. Before it started, Alec recognized Leviel as the head of a renowned S-rank team, but that didn't deter him from believing he could win. Alec activated his Thunderbolt while Leviel activated Torrent. They both dodged each other's attacks. Leviel used his enhancement spell as well as his jet booster to fight. He flew and ran so fast that Alec couldn't predict his next move. Leviel struck Alec, who tried to use his shield to protect himself. himself, but it didn't work. Leviel threw Alec against the wall, and Yorha became concerned. Alec stood up unscathed, admitting that he had thought he was still a court magician, where all he had to do was defend. But now that he remembered where he was ready to fight. He used his magic blade and ran at Leviel. Again, Leviel used his jet booster, but he didn't know Alec had other plans. As Leviel moved, Alec activated Thunderbolt on him, and when he froze, Alec stabbed him. Leviel was shocked and acknowledged that Alec was as good as Yorha had said he was. You would expect that the test would end there and that Alec would be declared the winner, but Leviel had more plans. He gave a wicked laugh and activated a new skill called Dragneel. The Dragneel was an S-ranked skill that was incredibly strong. He used the jet booster along with the new skill and set out to attack Alec. Even Yorha grew worried for Alec and screamed his name, but Leviel hit the floor instead. The impact of that attack was so strong that the floor cracked. Leviel claimed he only did that to show Alec the extent of his power so that Alec would give up on the fight. However, giving up meant giving up on joining his friends, so Alec refused. He set out to fight again, using his sword to attack Leviel, but his strikes had no effect. When he wondered why, Yorha revealed that the secret behind Dragneel was its ability to heal itself. No matter how much he attacked, he couldn't win. Leviel asked again if he wanted to give up, but Alec refused and continued fighting. He dodged most of Leviel's attacks and kept striking, hoping for a breakthrough. When Leviel lay his guard down, Alec stabbed him, landing a successful hit. Before he could finish, though, he ran out of mana and fainted. Leviel admitted that Alec was strong, but before giving his decision, Ornest arrived and accused Leviel of being a bully, using his S-ranked skills on a young boy. Leviel claimed he had planned to give Alec the pass anyway, so technically, Alec had won. Unfortunately, Alec wasn't awake to hear that. They carried him inside, and Ornest waited to hear the full story of what had happened in the court. Leviel wasn't surprised. He knew how they behaved in the court, where only a mage's background and nobility mattered. Misha came to inform Leviel that something had happened in the guild, so Leviel left. This gave Yorha and Ornest a chance to talk. Yorha told him how much Alec had been mistreated in the palace, how the prince couldn't fight, how Alec had to carry their swords and baggage, and even how he had to use support magic. Ornest was shocked because Alec hadn't known support magic when they were students. That confirmed Alec had learned support magic from scratch just to help the prince. Yet, he still wasn't appreciated. Ornest was furious that Alec had basically babysat the prince without ever using his real magic skills. He grew angrier when he found out from Yorha that the prince's party had ousted Alec from the team, calling him useless. He broke the bottle in his hand in anger, and the sound woke Alec up. Alec recognized him and asked what was wrong, but Ornest lied. Alec felt bad because he couldn't defeat Leviel and get the pass, but Yorha consoled him by showing him the pass and telling him they could now raid the dungeon together. He was excited to start adventuring with his friends, but Ornest claimed they had something else to deal with first. He spoke with so much certainty that the others were shocked and wondered what he meant. He revealed that they had to get revenge against the prince's party for what they did to their friend. He wouldn't allow it. While Yorha agreed they deserved revenge, Alec stopped them. He admitted that he was angry too, but he preferred to grow into a great adventurer rather than fight. Ornest thought about what he said. It would be better if they became the best adventurers, so that when Galdina City was invaded, the prince and the other nobles would have no choice but to come to them. That way, they could take revenge by rejecting the prince's request. It sounded like a good idea to the rest, so they agreed. Meanwhile, Misha turned out to be right. There was fire on the mountain. A team of S-ranked adventurers, the Recrome, had been attacked in the dungeon, in the tank killer level. The team sent one of their members, Krista, to get help from the guild. When Leviel found out, he rightly concluded that an attack on the S-ranked team was an attack on the guild itself, so he gathered all his S-ranked and A-ranked adventurers to go into the dungeon. While they were holding that meeting, Alec stayed home. Krasha came to visit him and was glad to see him again. Seeing how washed up he looked, she admitted he hadn't been well. Regardless, she used her healing magic on him and told him that if he ever wanted to talk about what he'd been through, he could come to her. And since she had healing magic, she could heal his pain too. He appreciated her kindness and admitted he was still used to the court's way of life, where he couldn't confide in anyone. She asked about the others, and when he told her where they had gone, she wondered why he hadn't joined them. He reminded her that he was just a newbie and couldn't go with them. Soon, Ornest returned with Yorha and revealed what had happened in the dungeon. Ornest said Leviel had asked for their help, especially since healing magic didn't work at that level of the dungeon, and they needed to take along several healing potions. Ornest and Krasha argued for a while, but Alec and Yorha kept talking. Alec doubted himself, but Yorha told him that they were going with Leviel and the other adventurers only as extras. This affected Alec's mindset. He felt he wasn't that good and was best suited as an extra. They quickly corrected him, revealing that the only reason Leviel had invited them for the adventure was because they would bring Alec. If Alec didn't go, they would be useless. Encouraged by that, he agreed to go, and they left for the dungeon. In front of the dungeon, the party members recalled how they had once explored the dungeon together as students, and now they were returning as adults. They vowed to grow stronger and lead the world. They were young, full of missions and goals. I really hope the future holds great news for them. Without any further ado, the last period party gets ready to head to the 64th floor to rescue Rechroma. Normally, an adventurer would need to sequentially clear all of the upper floors before going to their desired floors, but Yorha has an item that she can use to get through all of the upper floors without fighting the boss that she has previously cleared. Her magical core allows her to skip all the way to the 52nd floor, but the Guildmaster gave her Krista's core, and with that, they can directly take a shortcut to floor 64. Alec doesn't understand why the Guildmaster would give them something of so much importance. However, what he doesn't realize is that the lasting period party is the Guildmaster's greatest asset. There's also the fact that the Guildmaster has another core with him, an extra one that Krista borrowed from her endangered party mates. Anyway, Yorha has heard about the boss of the 64th floor, so they shouldn't have much to worry about. They'll just have to hope that Alec gets back in form and doesn't run out of mana again. Krasha takes this moment to also make everyone cautious, reminding them that an S-ranked party got nearly wiped out on this floor. Everyone gets serious, except for Ornest, who just can't contain his excitement, wanting to face the challenge immediately. Before entering the dungeon, he declares that this floor, the tank-killing 64th floor, will be the new beginning of the legendary adventuring party, the lasting period. With that, Yorha throws the orb up in the air and casts a spell, instantly teleporting all of them to the West Dungeon's tank killer floor. Their arrival triggers the spawn of nearby undead skeletons, but dealing with these lousy monsters is just light work for Ornest. He, with a smile on his face, brings out an artifact that, upon activation, turns into a spear and lunges at them with the lightest movement, eliminating the skeletons in front. He then charges into the enemies without a plan, so Yorha rushes to follow him to give him support. Meanwhile, in the back, Alec expresses his surprise to Krasha, stating he never thought Ornest would acquire an artifact as well. Krasha replies to Alec, telling him about Almaresteka, Ornest's black spear. It is known for being vicious at piercing and slashing and is nearly impossible to break, having Unbreaking 3 enchantment attached to it. She thinks that such a reckless weapon really suits a reckless guy like Ornest. Alec agrees with her and wonders if they will even need to do anything here with Ornest easily dealing with everything all by himself. Wanting to participate, Alec asks Ornest if he needs any help, but Ornest replies in the negative, telling Alec to save his energy to face the real enemies. Alec realizes what Ornest is trying to do, so he's glad that he has such a reliable teammate. He walks forward, letting his guard down when suddenly he senses that something's about to ambush him from behind. He acts quickly and conjures a thunderbolt spell behind him, but finds nothing. He wonders if he imagined it at first, but upon closer inspection, he realizes that there's an enemy either hiding their presence or is invisible. He attacks the enemy with his magic blade, forcing it to reveal itself as a Grim Reaper. Ornest is happy to see that his old mate Alec hasn't lost his touch that much, and leaves it to Alec to deal with the Grim Reaper, as he himself doesn't know how to handle invisible enemies. As the Grim Reaper once again drives his scythe towards Alec, Alec lunges upwards and lands a clean hit, defeating the monster instantly. Alec looks at everyone else and realizes that the only reason no one else looked surprised earlier when they saw the Grim Reaper is because they already knew that this floor is infested with these types of monsters, meaning they were trying to put this rusty attack mage to the test. In any case, more undead surround them, so both Ornest and Alec, with Krasia and Yorha constantly feeding them with support magic, jump straight into battle. Alec finishes things up with one quick thunderbolt sweep, and with that, he's certain that he's cleared this area completely. Ornest notices that Alec here, for some weird reason, only tends to cast the Thunderbolt spell now, even though he has many more combat spells in his arsenal. The answer is related to an undisclosed incident with the royal clown Alec was serving before, but he doesn't get into it and simply lies, saying that he uses this spell because it is the fastest to activate. Ornest knows very well that Alec is trying to hide something, and this time he won't let him get away with it. He confronts Alec, but before he can get the truth out of him, the floor suddenly shakes violently. The source of this destructive vibration is coming from deep inside, and Yorha assumes that it's the floor boss. With Yorha's spell boost, Ornest rushes to the place first with his bolt skill, while the other three members follow him behind at a much slower pace. Once they reach the end of the hallway, they end up entering an open desert field. Alec sees Ornest looking down at the ground with a disappointed face, so he looks down as well and finds an adventurer named Loki being chased comedically by a dinosaur-looking monster. It's the floor boss chasing the pathetic adventurer, begging for help, but Ornest doesn't want to help him. Apparently, Loki, a sneaky little support mage, is known for being the biggest jerk in Krista's party, Rechroma. Loki notices Ornest and, seeing that he isn't coming down to save him, threatens Ornest, telling him that he will haunt him for the rest of his life if he lets him die here. Ornest couldn't care less, though. He keeps watching and still doesn't help when Loki trips and falls face flat on the ground. Alec tries to go help, but Krasia stops him, telling him that this is actually a typical trap by the sneaky mage. It's just as she said, because the moment the monster drops its guard and approaches its prey, Loki casts a powerful trap magic and stabs the monster with several giant magic blades. He then gets up, being sure that he's dealt a considerable amount of damage to it. But just as he starts taunting his enemy, the monster unleashes its ultimate magical attack at him, making him realize he's done for now. Thankfully for him, Ornest jumps in finally and saves him from getting hit. On the other hand, Alec, along with Krasia and Yorha, gets down as well to deal with the boss monster. Just as the game begins for Alec, he prepares to fight and the monster comes at him faster, and Yorha defends him with a shield. Before he can invoke his thunderbolt, he sees the monster turn around. Yorha wonders if the monster is trying to retreat, but she is wrong. Alec immediately figures that the monster is going towards Ornest's direction, and this just means one thing. The monster is going straight for Loki. Well, I can guess the trap Loki used on the monster earlier still hurts him, and he can't find a place to forgive Loki. They scream at Ornest to take Loki out of that place, but Ornest wants to put on a show first. He slides under the monster and distracts him. That way, he successfully gets behind the monster. As you can expect from the revengeful boss, the monster turns to chase Loki again. This time, Ornest prepares to throw Loki to his colleagues. He asks them to catch and throws the boy on the mountain, but no one cares enough to catch him. As Loki's face rolls on the floor, Yorha orders Krasia to take him to safety while the others fight. She struggles to drag him up the mountain to the other side, where the monster can't catch him, but Loki makes her work more difficult by intentionally resting on her body and not pulling his weight. Best believe this is why people don't like him. Just as she gets to the edge of the mountain and thumbs up at her colleague to tell them Loki is safe, Alec gets set to go for the next round. Ornest calls Yorha for support magic, which she delivers to him without any stress. She invokes all of his 5 senses to get a perfect magic enhancement so they can defeat the monster in front of them. With her strength, Ornest rushes to the monster, but the monster defends himself. Ornest flies to stab his body, but the monster uses his tail to chase Ornest away completely and successfully pushes Ornest to the floor. Yorha feels concerned for him and rushes to help him, but the monster attacks again. She uses her shield skills to protect him this time. Her shield starts breaking and her strength starts failing. Her only hope at that point is Alec. Meanwhile, when Loki gets calm, he looks and sees a strange person among the team. He immediately recognizes who the person is and comments that the lasting period party is back together. Well, they are back, bigger, stronger, and better. Loki looks in awe as Alec casts his spells. He sees Alec cast 3 spells and recalls that when a mage can cast 3 spells, he is good. When you cast 5 at once, then you are a genius. Little does he know that Alec is more than a genius. No wonder he is called a prodigy and a legend. To Loki's shock, Alec casts 20 magic spells at once, and magic circles surround the monster. After casting them, Ornest jumps to stab its tail and screams. Then Alec invokes his thunderbolt and his acceleration magic at once. Loki sees the velocity of this power and is in awe. Alec prepares to release his final strike at the monster, but the monster, seeing the strength of what is coming at him, attempts to escape. He breaks the magic and tries to attack them, but Krasha gets into the business and pins the monster down with her arrow rain. Then Yorha uses her bind magic while Alec invokes his 4-directional seal. It is teamwork for the party members, and indeed, teamwork makes the dream work. At that point, the monster feels calmer than even Alec, as expected. He weakly tries to invoke a new magic. Alec thinks about the very last magic he wants to use, a magic skill that Eldest taught him back in those days. During the training, Eldest told him that there are just 2 people in the academy who can use the magic. The first person was the genius who had created it, and the second person was Alec. Well, it is time for Alec to show his skills. He activates Reflect, a rare skill that takes a bigger shape of whatever the enemy is invoking. This magic creates a big red ball, and the monster is attacked. Well, Alec isn't stopping there. This time, he hopes to set the monster on fire, so he activates Helios, and a great fire erupts. After giving his signature attack, he turns to leave, although he knows a madman is still going to attack the monster. Well, that madman is Ornest. He uses his pierce and slash to completely slice the monster into 2 and jumps down to fight Alec for calling him a madman. Alec convinces him that it was just a compliment and teases him by calling him a genius. The other members of the party join them, and they all tease Ornest by reminding him that when they were in the academy, he was in 4th place, so he is very far from a genius. A party spoiler joins them, no other person than Loki. He confesses that he knows Alec and that Alec works as a court magician. He talks about how he, as well as others, have heard about the legend that they killed the Hydra, and claims that despite the fact that others don't believe, he is a believer. Alec confesses that he is no longer a court magician, and Loki mocks the nobles for losing such a gem. Loki asks them for their potion to renew his strength and reveals that he had given all of his potions to his colleagues who are fighting the boss. This shocks the party members, who had assumed that the monster they had just fought was the boss. Jokes on them. Loki informs them that there are 2 bosses, and the one they had just fought is the weaker of them. His team had used him as a distraction to lure the boss with the lower IQ away so they could fight the bigger boss. This intrigues the party members, who want to know how great the real boss is. To their shock, Loki reveals that the boss is an undead knight wrapped in armor from his head to his toes, and based on their prepositions, there is nothing in the armor. Wow, they are fighting an undead monster. He further tells them that because the monster is armored, physical attacks can only slow it down. They will never defeat it. He brings out a tiny crossed weapon and gives it to Alec, claiming that they need Alec's help to survive. He reveals that Alec looks like the best fighter to be a frontrunner because the monsters will assume he is weak. Just as Alec holds the tiny cross, it turns into a Schwart. Alec recognizes the Schwart as the splitter of heaven and earth, and Ornest wonders why Loki would give Alec such a gem. Yorha guesses correctly that Loki intends to make Alec the frontrunner of the fight, and Loki admits that they are right. Yorha gets defensive. How do they expect Alec to fight with a sword without using magic when they are fighting an undead monster in armor? Without giving a response, Loki walks away suspiciously, and the others stand. He claims it is his turn. He is to get the monster in a surprise by waging an attack. This boy looks suspicious. I really hope he doesn't mean evil for our lasting period party members.